What a performance from David Benavidez as he cemented himself as one of the best fighters in the world. A dominant win over David Morrell in a fight that lived up to the expectations, a fight that immediately from the opening bell, both fighters were going at it. This was incredible. This was an incredible night of boxing as David Benavidez has put himself in a firm track to superstardom in the sport. He was already on that track, but now it's going a lot faster as Benavidez will now be in line for the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol. But that we'll figure out all of that at a later date, later this month, February 22nd. That's when we'll figure it out. Right now, let's talk about a recap for David Benavidez versus David Morrell, a fight that, again, cleared a lot of things up and showed just the greatness of David Benavidez. But first, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the Never Drop podcast, and comment below. You think David Benavidez won this fight convincingly? And if so, who do you want to see him face, Beterbiev or Bivol next? But back to this fight. David Benavidez, he got the job done convincingly. To begin, we come out round one. These guys are exchanging. They're exchanging immediately. I didn't think that was going to happen. If you listen to my preview of the fight, I thought Benavidez would take 3 to 4 to maybe even 5 rounds to really get going. I thought Morrell was going to be able to bank those rounds, and then Benavidez would kind of figure it out and then go downhill from there. Nope. Benavidez immediately was pushing the pace, was coming forward, and that's something Morrell was never really able to stop. He was able to slow it down for different moments in the fight. He was able to stop Benavidez from coming forward. In fact, a couple times was able to push Benavidez back. But the majority of the fight was Benavidez going forward, and I thought that was interesting because Morrell made the comments, RoboCop, all he does is go forward. So he knew what was going to come. He knew what was coming his way, and Benavidez just wouldn't stop. And I thought it was interesting in the post-fight in-ring press conference, not press conference, but in-ring interview after the fight, Benavidez said, I thought he'd hit harder. And that was the difference. That's why Benavidez continued to go forward, because he didn't really respect Morrell's power. Granted, Morrell did get a knockdown in the 11th round, but that was off balance. Yes, it was a knockdown, but I don't really count it too much against David Benavidez. It was more of him being bored and just realizing he was dominating the fight and being stupid because something worse could have happened in that scenario, but it didn't. For Benavidez, he really proved himself to be a different level. Continued to be aggressive the entire night. I think both fighters kind of slowed down, got tired 6th, 7th, 8th round. In those rounds, you could see, I thought David Morrell looked tired from the 3rd or 4th round on. Benavidez continued the pressure. Benavidez got a little bit tired, and as you can see, these guys were throwing punches after punches after punches at each other, so you can understand the tiredness from them. But they both kind of got tired. The output wasn't as much as it was, say, those first 4 to 5 to 6 rounds. In round 7 to about 10, yes, they had good exchanges, but they weren't throwing as much as they were earlier in that fight. But then it gets to the 11th and 12th round. Morrell's realizing, I'm down in this fight, and I'm down in this fight big. Personally, I think I had it either 10-2 or 9-3 in favor of Benavidez. I had it wide, so for the longest time it was, yeah, David Morrell's going to need a knockout for this fight. His trainer, Ronnie Shields, was telling him, and I thought David Morrell did a great job in the 11th and 12th round when he said, screw it, I got to go for the knockout. I'm just throwing everything. He kind of had Benavidez a little flustered, and one thing Benavidez did in this fight that he needs to correct was a lot of times he'd keep his hands down, and Morrell would hit him. Benavidez, I don't know, maybe that was him being tired, keeping his hands down instead of the high guard we usually see him in, and he was in at the beginning of the fight. But he kept his hands down, and he kind of was getting hit from that. So I think that's something to work on for Benavidez. That might just be a conditioning thing or a habit of him putting his hands down. Obviously, you get tired, hands come down. But overall, I think Benavidez's defense in this fight was really good. Everyone talked about Morrell's defense. Morrell, a few things he didn't do in this fight. He didn't really use the angles like I thought he would. He allowed Benavidez to back him up. And when he was on the ropes and getting backed up, he didn't let his left hand go, left or right hand, excuse me, go. He did in the fourth round, and he really stunned Benavidez. He got Benavidez really well on a right hook, I believe it was in the corner. Benavidez was teeing off on him, had dominated the entire round. And Morrell just said, let the hook go, and it turned Benavidez' head almost like a 90 degrees. Benavidez and Morrell jumped on him. Benavidez quickly recovered, responded. They were going back and forth, a great exchange, one of the best of the fights. But I thought that would have gave Morrell more confidence to when Benavidez is in close and unloading. For Morrell, he might just say, screw it, and just throw a hook and get Benavidez to really understand the power, which obviously I mentioned Benavidez said there wasn't too much of it. But I thought from that shot originally in the fourth round, okay, Morrell had something to keep Benavidez off of him if he does get onto the ropes or in the corner. But he just wouldn't do it. He would shell up and Benavidez would tee off. One of the best punches in this fight for Benavidez was the uppercut. I mean, Benavidez was hitting Morrell with everything, whether it's the left hand, the right hand, an uppercut, straight shot, splitting the guard of Morrell. I thought the uppercut in this fight was devastating. I mean, Morrell, again, from the fourth round on, his eyes were swelling. He just looked almost dead. He wasn't moving as much as he was earlier in the fight, and you could just see the experience of David Benavidez in this fight was huge. He understood the moment. Again, I thought the pacing was going to play a major factor. And I think, again, experience helped in that, and Benavidez realizing, okay, I can't just let this guy get rounds in the beginning because he is a very good fighter. I can't just let him get rounds like everyone, including myself, anticipates. I have to counter, I have to push the action, and I have to land shots and take these rounds for myself if I'm David Benavidez, and that's exactly what he did. David Morrell, I thought in defeat, he still put up a very good performance. I know the scorecards were wide. What I had was wide, of course. But I thought David Morrell put up a very good performance. Even in defeat, I think David Morrell is a force to be reckoned with. I think, like I mentioned, only 11-0 going into this fight. Experience played a role. He didn't know when to push, when to back off, when to counter, as he usually does against, say, the B or B plus opponents, because David Benavidez is an A to A plus opponent at 175, and Benavidez has been in there against A opponents before, so he kind of understands that. Morrell, he's getting to that. So if we see a rematch of this fight in a year or two, that would be even a better fight than this was, because Morrell gets that experience. And for Morrell, it's no shame. Right now, you're young, 27, 11-1 now. Okay, you're the fourth guy at 175 because you lost to Benavidez. I don't think you beat Beterbiev or Bivol. That's nothing to be ashamed of because a lot of guys at 68 and 75 you can beat. So for him, I think as he works that experience, he has the chance to climb the ranks at 75. For Benavidez, I mean, we talked about this, and I'll have another video talking about his options, aka Beterbiev or Bivol. But for him, that's the fight. We'll see that on February 22nd, which way that's going to go. But for him, even thinking about either one of those fights against Bivol, oh my goodness, against Beterbiev, two very good punchers. And for Benavidez, I'm interested for the power because he wasn't able to get a knockdown or a knockout, but his power was making an impact on David Morrell. If you don't think so, just look at the way he slowed Morrell down. The way Morrell would shell up when David would just let combinations go. And obviously they weren't the 19 punch combos David Benavidez has knocked opponents out with the past. But these were legit combinations. And one thing Benavidez does really good is he doesn't continue to throw the same shot over and over. There's a few times where he'd throw a right uppercut twice in a row. And I'm like, don't throw the third one. And he'd come back with the left hook. Okay. We've seen in the past fighters, when I think about this in particular, is Leo Santa Cruz against Gervonta Tank Davis. Threw the same punch 3 times in a row, and Tank realized that, capitalized on it. Benavidez, okay, I'll throw this same power punch twice in a row because it might get me off balance, but I'm going to come back with my third punch, a different shot. So if I go 2 uppercuts with the right hand, I'll finish my third shot, a left uppercut. So he might be leaning one way, thinking I'm going to throw that third punch the same. It's coming from a different angle. So for Benavidez, I think his IQ in there is insane. I think he has a great IQ. And right now, he's just on a mission. He's on a warpath for anybody in front of him. And I'm glad he's not waiting on Canelo Alvarez. And granted, I want to see that fight. But if he were to really limit his career, man, we wouldn't be able to enjoy these great fights he's putting on. I mean, since 2023, Caleb Plant, Demetrius Andrade, Vosdick, who is a very solid opponent at 75, and now David Morrell. Great 4 fights. And think about that. He can add Beterbiev versus Bivol, by the end of 2025. I think David Benavidez has made his case to be a top pound-for-pound fighter in this sport. He gives the fans what they want. It was a great night of action. And he proves he can win at these high levels. And he does so in pretty convincing manner. I want to talk about a quick, fun kind of back and forth in the 11th round, as that was when Benavidez did get knocked down. Got knocked down in the 11th. Again, off balance, keeping his hands low, moving, I believe, to his right. Morrell hit him. Wasn't all Morrell's power, which is probably good for Benavidez. Flash knockdown, goes down. And Benavidez says, "Oh, okay, yeah, you want to make me go touch the canvas, look like a fool? I'm going to come back all my might." He's teeing off. They get into it. The bell rings. I thought Benavidez's punch landed after the bell, but I thought he might have thrown it as the bell or right before the bell rang. And then David Morrell took exception and hit David Benavidez, got a point deducted. I thought it was the right call, as I did think that, one, it was obviously way after the bell, and it was a flush shot. Say he kind of pulled back at the last second, then we could have a discussion, because it was a flush shot. So I'm happy with the point deduction on David Morrell, but these guys couldn't stand each other in the build up to this fight in the ring. I mean, there was a time I think they were both talking to each other, and the ref had to say, "Okay, fight, quit talking, fight." So overall, this entire event delivered, from the build up to it to the fight itself. It's crazy. You usually don't see these wide margins on the scoreboards really deliver great necessarily fights. This did that. This was a great fight. I think everybody was happy with it. We got a good undercard. Pitbull Cruz, that might have been the fight of the year already. Shout out to Stephen Fulton getting back, a 126 champion, coming back, being champion again. That was a huge win for him. And David Benavidez, I think, cementing himself as a pound-for-pound star in this fight. He was already one. Great. Superstar. Now, as he's on track to face either Beterbiev or Bivol in a war at 175. Man, this, as a boxing fan, this was awesome. I was so happy for this fight. I was so hyped for this fight. It was incredible. Man, I mean, it sucks that it's over, but now the avenues for everything are incredible. Talked about Benavidez, Morrell. He's gonna have a fine career. This one loss isn't gonna define him. He'll be back. And if we get a rematch of these guys in a year and a half, 2 years from now, whew, that's gonna be incredible. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think about this fight? Do you think Benavidez won that convincingly, or do you think it was a little tighter than the judges and myself had it? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you like this video for all your boxing news. We'll talk about all outcomes from this fight. We'll talk about a new video coming out soon about David Benavidez, his path, and what his next fight will be, as well as Morrell. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe, do all of it, as boxing is in a great place. 2025, I mean, this is just the start. If this is any indication for what the year is going to be, we're going to be in for a treat. What a performance by David Benavidez and Morrell. Last thing I'll say is, this is what happens when two guys in their prime fight each other. No one's getting bashed from this fight. Only respect for both guys. Everyone has respect for Morrell for getting in there and putting up a good performance, and Benavidez coming out the victor. Don't be afraid to lose your O. Because even if you do, if you put up a solid fight and you earn the respect of people, you're going to come out of it even better. Okay? So props to both guys for getting in the ring and giving it their all. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe to the Never Drop Podcast. That's all I got for you. David Benavidez gets the unanimous decision and sets himself up for a mega fight at 175. I'll be back with more, but as for right now, that's all I got. Peace. I'm out.